Well, thank you guys so much for coming to celebrate Dennis Ziemienski with us today. For those of you who are here in person, many of you are from the Napa Valley, and for those of you that are not, welcome. It's a nice, foggy, wintry day. And for those of you who are tuning in at home, thank you for sending in your questions. I'm going to work a few of those into the interview as they make sense, or if they make sense. If you're really random, I might save you for the end. We'll have an open Q&A. For those of you that are here in person, we'll save those questions until the end. But thank you once again for being here. We're here to celebrate Dennis Ziemienski, who's had, for lack of a better term, an illustrious career. Over 50 years making art and illustrations for commercial projects, fine art galleries, and, well, probably just the joy of it. So welcome, Dennis.
Well, thank you. And Gina, thank you for inviting me to your wonderful setup here and accompanying you with your artwork, which is, I love it. You know, it's just so unusual and so wonderfully done.
Well, thank you very much, Dennis. I appreciate it. So we have a lot of different topics I want to touch on, and I think a lot of people start like let's start it at the beginning where you were a creative kid. I'm going to skip that part because I just want to bet you were a creative kid, because almost all kids are creative. And it's so people always ask, like, when did you start being an artist? Everyone starts being an artist. When did you quit being an artist? Was there ever a time you quit being an artist, Dennis? Can we start there?
Yes, that is a good question. When I was an illustrator, when I was a kid, there were times when I went along and illustration is what I wanted to do. Merely that, book covers, magazine covers, event posters, whatnot. And then the digital thing started happening, and I was asked to do digital stuff, and I didn't know how to do it. And it was a time where I felt they didn't appreciate just fine art painting. And so I didn't quit, I backed off. I still had illustration jobs with art directors saying, we'd like to have a JPEG of your thing rather than sending the artwork in or whatever. I go, what the hell is a JPEG? And this is in the 90s, and it's starting to really snowball. And I had a few friends, one that might show up here, who got into that, and we'll maybe have a discussion with him if he happens to show up. But I realized perhaps I love designing homes. And so I designed my own home, and somebody else's too, and about 3 or 4 homes I designed, and I still love doing that. And then I realized when people started asking, that book cover you did for so-and-so, do you have that? And generally the publishers give you back your artwork, unless they buy that. It's a full buyout, and they'll buy the artwork as well. Well, I would get all this artwork back, book covers, magazine covers, or whatever, and it was all in my attic. And people would write in or email me saying, do you have this book cover? And I would say, yes. Could I buy it? And so I would sell it to them, at a marginal price. However, it made me realize, if that's the case, I should get into galleries. And so there was that little glitch in there where I maybe didn't quite quit illustration and didn't quite enter into the fine art field as well. Just kind of like a little bit of a space in there.
Yeah, well, that actually is a great opportunity to bring up one of the questions I got from one of our online friends, a painter friend of mine from Utah, Greg Newbold, who is also a commercial illustrator and works in the fine art capacity. And he had a question for you about how long that took, what were some of the ups and downs there, because I think it's not quite that cut and dried. Lots of people think and then I switched over. You have family obligations, you probably have rent or a mortgage or other things. How did that transition go for you? And were there any things kind of on your way that were either ridiculously hard or just like kismet? Was there good luck or, you know, opportunities that came your way that kind of helped you through that transition?
The transition wasn't exactly easy. However, I had a plan. And since I was in advertising, I knew how to advertise. I knew how to market myself, very much like you, Gina. You're wonderful in marketing. And so what I did was when I decided to go into galleries, there were 2 or 3 galleries that I really wanted to get into. And rather than just sending my slides down there, I decided to bombard the coast. You know, it's kind of like an invasion.
You told me storm the beaches. I remember this bit because I've been
Yes.
storming the beaches in true Dennis Ziemienski fashion.
So the plan was storming the beaches with advertising in the national art magazines. And so I spent about $10,000 putting in full-page ads of my artwork and then letting that in for 3 months in a row. And after a while, I got calls from lots of galleries. I didn't get the call from the one I wanted, so I sent my slides in. I sent my slides. I had slides
Of
during
course,
that
yep.
time. This is like turn of the century. This century, that is. And so they got my slides, and then I called them. About a week later, I called them and I said, "Did you get my slides?" They said, "We certainly did. We saw your ad in the magazine, and we'd like to, see your artwork." I was like, "Well, gee, why didn't you tell me before?" Oh, it doesn't matter. Anyway, I went.
Before I spent all this money on the subsequent ads, right?
Yes.
I have an artist's budget here. Come on, guys.
So Mark Sublett at Medicine Man Gallery called me. Or not called me, I called him, but he called me back and said, "Could you bring some of your artwork down? We'd like to take a closer look at it." Yeah. And so I packed everything into a U-Haul, went down there and brought it in. And we were there in the gallery, and I'm looking around. Some of my colleagues were there already, and not in person, but their artwork. And so I said, "Mark, any one of these, if you like one of them, you might want to test it." "I want them all," he said.
Nice.
"I want them all." I said, "Oh, okay, that's fine." Within a couple of months, they were all gone. So it was kind of like, okay, we can do this. What year was this?
Yeah, I can't remember.
This was 2004 in Santa Fe, but we were in Tucson to bring the artwork there. So thank you, Mark.
Yeah. Well, and the
for
rest
that.
is history, right? But before we go too deeply into your, what I would consider a fine art career, a gallery direction, let's talk a little bit more about illustration, because I don't know if people really understand what an analog illustrator would have even done. Walk us through kind of your workflow, I guess. Some of us have seen Mad Men or other things where like the ad guys are over there, they got ideas, and there's some poor guy, some poor bloke in the corner just drawing like furiously, and then they change their mind and he starts over, and then, so talk us through a little bit about like what that workflow looked like and kind of how an assignment would come about from one of those projects.
Well, it's all stemmed from school. I went to California College. It was called California College of Arts and Crafts. Now it's called California College of the Arts. And I took a painting class, and the instructor said, "How many of you want to become fine artists?" And nearly everybody raised their hand. I didn't. I wanted to become an illustrator. And he said, "Well, maybe 1 or 2 of you might make it if you have a rich grandmother. However, if you go into illustration and do imagery, you may have a back door to it later on." And so that was in my head even, this was in the 70s, early 70s. And even, 3 decades later, I thought, I guess this is the time to do that. But getting back to the illustration thing, it was always an exciting thing to be able to work on one project and think about the next and the next and the next. You know, it's really a fast thing. And deadlines weren't my forte. You know, I'd always be working.
You were born to be a fine artist.
Right. But Mark Sublett, to back up a little bit, he says, I prefer illustrators because they don't crap up their deadlines. You know you're going to get the work because there's a big dot in the newspaper that says Ziemienski effed up, you know. At any rate, so what were we just talking about? I'm sorry.
I want to know the workflow a little bit
Oh, the
of an
flow.
illustrator. So say
Yes.
there's a bunch of ad
Sorry.
guys in the room, 3 martinis
Right,
deep.
right.
They have an idea. They've decided it's a good one. Now what happens? How do they give it to you? When do you have to have it?
An
turned
art
around
director
by?
would-
How does that go for you?
Yes, you know, after you get kind of following with art directors, either at publishing companies or advertising agencies or industrial places. I also had agents. I had one in San Francisco, one in New York, and they would find the job. They would have people calling them and saying, okay, we'd like to have Ziemienski or one of your illustrators do this. And I almost always accepted it. It would be hard for me to turn down something unless it was just, the deadline was just too horrible. So the workflow is kind of problematic in that.
That's what we want to know is like, how is the sausage made? Is it going to ruin the illusion if I ask to?
No. As a matter of fact, it's more magical than that. So in the early days, I can't do this anymore, working into the wee hours, in fact, staying up all night to get an idea. And you always want to bring it to the outer end of the envelope. But if you're coming up, if an art director has an idea and gives it to you, you ask them, or you try to tell them, you know, I might have something else that might be a little more fun. You don't want to say better. And so I'd go back and come up with several ideas. It would be idea 1, 2, and 3, maybe even more than that, and you'd show your best one. And knocking it out of the park is the term, and I would do that frequently. They'd say, "Oh yeah, that's a lot better than the idea that we had," and then we'd go with it, which would be great. Then there were people that would quibble, and they say, "Well, can you do?" And I said, "I have number 2." And then you have number 3. If you fail on that, then after number 4, it's kind of like you don't want to work with them anymore. I don't think you're getting it. But I had a lot of wonderful assignments through that frustration of trying to get your work out there and get people to know that you're a thinker as well as an artist. Yeah. That you can come up with compositions and ideas that might move your material, whether it's a book cover, an author, a product, whatever. You can maybe perhaps do that. Did I answer that question?
Yeah. Well, there's one work. I know you've done many, many works for hire, but there's one that I think has a little bit of a fun, not only tie into horse culture, but also just, I don't know, maybe lets us know that you've got some sort of magic, whether it's in your brain or your fingertips or your mother-in-law's brain. I'd really like to hear the story of your Kentucky Derby poster, because I understand there's some kind of kismet involved in that. I imagine it was 6 months before the event or a year before the event that you were commissioned to work on this painting for the Kentucky Derby.
That was one of the nicest projects. The fellow that's supposed to come in here today told me that this person was going to give me a call perhaps because he had done a few things for the Kentucky Derby as well. And we didn't grow up, we professionally grew up in Palo Alto as fellow illustrators. And so he's a colleague of mine, and we worked together on some projects and whatnot. He was supposed to come in and make fun of me, but well, It would have been.
There's still time, Dennis.
Would have
There
been
is still
fun.
time. Traffic's rough out there
Little
today.
John Matos is his name. He's marvelous. If look him up, he's got some great stuff. So he did some work for the Kentucky Derby. And so I got a call from Claire Jett, who was the art director at the Kentucky Derby, and said, we'd like for you to do the Kentucky Derby for the 2006. And this is well into me getting into Mark Sublet's thing. So I'm still doing illustration, even though I'm doing fine artwork, which is fine, as long as it's a fun project. I was a little on kind of like the cliff about this whole thing, because there have been a few projects like Time Magazine or Sports Illustrated or whatever. They usually get about 3 or 4 artists to do a cover or come up with an idea, and then they pick the one that they want. So I said, I'm working on some fine artwork here. Perhaps, unless I'm the person to do it, I don't want to do this.
I don't want to audition. I'm at this point in my career where I don't need to audition. Don't
exactly.
insult me.
Gina, you hit the nail on the head. At this point, we're beyond that. And so, I don't know. It was just, I've lost my train of thought. Wow.
So, I want to get you back to what I think is a little bit unusual about this. And we have one of the posters up on the wall we can check out a little bit later.
Yeah, well, she said.
But, so what I want to know is, how did the number 8 end up on this horse? And was there any significance to that? Because, yes, it's quite nice that you got the commission, right? Then what?
Right. She said, yeah, no, you're in on the whole thing. I just, and so that was great. And my daughter, Sophia, and my wife, Anne, who love horses, said, you better have done this. Because she was in the pony club and everything else. So I'm working on some sketches for this thing. And I take a look at some of the, old posters. And there are always lots of horses. There's Churchill Downs in the background. There's lots of fun stuff going on and lots of horses. And I thought, if you look at my work, any bit of it, there's always a central image and everything else is subordinate. And so I decided to continue with that theme and just do one racehorse with Kentucky Derby behind that. And so it was kind of like I had to figure out a number on that. And so Anne was on the phone with her mother, Jacqueline, in Washington, D.C. And I said, ask Jacqueline to give you a number between 1 and 20. I mean, she said 8 right away. And Jacqueline was not the type of person that would give you any answer quickly like that. Okay. It was mostly, so what do you, there was a big story behind it. So number 8.
She was decisive for once. Yes.
Number 8 it was. And so I put that on there and had some of Sophia's colleagues with horses do a bit of horse racing for me and doing pictures and all that.
You got your Muybridge on. You got some, anatomical references of everyone.
So I submitted that, and they said, "Oh my, this is different. Generally, you have all these numbers here. Having one number, people will tend to bet on that one. Oh well, let's just do it anyway." So I painted it, and the day of the race, we got to go out to Kentucky, and Sophia and me, and Sophia's only like 14 or 12 or 14, something like that. And so she, the day before, they wanted me as the artist of the Kentucky Derby to give this prize. I said, no, have Sophia do it. So Sophia was taller than the jockey and giving the prize to that. And then the day of the race, the afternoon of the race, we're sitting with our mint juleps, watching the race go. And I bet on number 8. I figured, what the heck? Let's put $20 on 8. It can't. If I lose $20. And the horses start out. And then when they come back around, Barbaro, which is number 8, was ahead by 7 lengths. And the name of the poster that was done in November the previous year, I called it Out in Front. And they said, Barbaro's out in front. You know, and there was number 8 that went over the finish line. And the art director who was behind me dropped her mint julep and said, "This has never happened before. This has never happened." And I said, "Well, that's great, you know." But it was the next day. I mean, think of serendipity or magic or whatever it happens to be, because that was unusual in itself. But I was at the airport. They wanted me to go to the airport and sign posters for people who were leaving and didn't get a poster. And a few people came up and said, "Did you know that you had the trifecta?" Because number 8 won, of course, but it was the 132nd running of the Roses. 13 came in second, and 2 came in third. And if you did all the numbers on the poster, you would have made a fortune. I said,
Are you a
"Damn
betting
it."
man, Dennis Ziemienski?
Yeah,
I mean,
magic.
did you bet on number 8?
No, I didn't have the wand. Yeah, I did. I did bet on it.
Oh, you did? You did?
Yeah, I did,
I was
yeah.
going to say, you should buy a lottery card or bet on horses.
I know. Well, we don't have Jacqueline anymore to help us out, so she was the magic in the whole thing. So that's how the Kentucky Derby turned out.
That's wonderful. Well, that makes
It
me
was
happy. I think it's a good time to jump into a couple questions from our internet
Please do.
friends. And before we get out of the illustration world, I have one from Tom Soltish, who says, "Do you consider yourself an illustrator, fine artist, or both?"
Both.
Would you care to elaborate in any way?
Because I still do illustration. I belong to the Bohemian Club, and for my dues, I don't pay however many hundreds of thousands of dollars to join the thing. They ask me as an artist, all the musicians, all the artists, all the actors and whatnot, if they work within the club, their dues are considered free.
Well, better than washing dishes, maybe.
Yeah, well, I could do that too. But I do posters, and it's for them, for their events.
Yeah.
And it's really kind of fun to actually get back into illustration a little bit. And if you see some of my artwork, like Diving Girl, it's over here. You can't see it exactly, but it's in the book.
Yes.
We'll talk about that later. There is a sense of commercial art in that fine art painting, in that a number of years ago, people used to say, "Your artwork looks like orange crate labels. It looks like fruit crate labels." And I would look at them and kind of go, "Oh, that's nice. That's a compliment." And so I did a whole show for a gallery in Pasadena that was it was 12 paintings of invented fruit crate labels. And so that's bringing the illustration into fine art and bringing the fine art into illustration, for me.
Well, and it's a good time to talk a little bit about influences as well. Are there
Sure.
commercial illustrators or historic illustrators or companies or, that kind of set you on this path? Because it is purely Americana. We look at these things, whether you're looking at Art
Exactly.
Nouveau or you're looking into Sunset magazine covers, you're definitely carrying that torch to at least those of us who are observing some of those works. Talk to me a little bit about what inspired you to go there, and maybe if there were any specific artists or movements that you were interested in.
Well, there are quite a number of them, actually. It's not just Norman Rockwell, let's say. There's N.C. Wyeth and Maxfield Parrish and J.C. Leindecker. All those, you can see that in my work. I'm almost copying them, if not almost verbatim sometimes, just to get the feel. And when you're in school, you tend to do that to to try to get the feel of the color, the paint, and the technique that they tried to produce for themselves. And eventually that turns into what you do. As far as fine artists, well, there was other commercial artists later when I started getting really into the field that were from Europe, like Ludwig Holbein, who was illustrator who did color. He didn't blend color. It was all almost kind of like paint by number-ish kind of stuff. But the compositions were just magnificent in that he did the thing that I just talked about using a central figure or object and making everything else, if there was anything else, subordinate. Because your eye, if you're driving by a freeway and you see a billboard, you look at this thing that catches your eye right away. If it has too much stuff on it, you don't even look. Ludwig Holbein, Tom Purvis, Frank Brangwyn was another one who did fine art and commercial art. He also did did some murals for the Pan Pacific. These are all illustrators and artists who were early 20th century folks. So he did the Pan Pacific exposition in San Francisco. He did murals.
And that was when they built the Palace of Fine Arts?
Right.
Yes.
In that, and they took
1915?
1915. And they took them down and they had them in storage for about 10 or 15, maybe more years, until they built, what's the name of the Herbst Theater. Thank you. Thank you, Andy. The Herbst Theater, if you go there now, and you'll see the murals, they're 25 feet tall and 8 feet wide, and they're just absolutely astounding. The color and the compositions and everything are just, I mean, I look at those things, and I got several books on Frank Brangwyn. I'd love to be able to do work that looks a lot like that, but those are some of the influential people that I still admire, and when I'm kind of at a loss, like, oh, what am I doing here? I'll flip through a book and kind of go, okay, we can get back on track again.
You know, I've always heard when you're full of ideas, write. When you're out of ideas, read. And I think the same thing goes for visual artists. If you're full of ideas, just make them. If you're out of ideas, go to the museum or open a coffee table book or whatever you need to do. But it kind of helps you see how people did problem solving, right? You know, if you're at a particular impasse, you can see how someone else might have, gotten through some of those hurdles themselves.
Okay, speak of the devil. Yeah. Could you get these folks?
You guys should probably get a drink before you sit down, because I think you're a major part of. No. You should probably make your way to the bar real quick.
Okay. No, John and Katie here. Katie, his good buddy, have showed up, and thank you, John, for attending. You can go ahead. I already made fun of you, so you can go ahead and make fun of me.
Well, before I lose you on this, you talked a little bit about color, and I had a question from another artist, a friend named Andrea Vargas out of Ventura, who really admires your use of color and some of your unconventional use of color. You know, the vibrations of some of the things you do might not be super, I don't know what we would say, tame? I don't know. What inspires you to go with some of these interesting color combinations? And after all these years of trying out, probably many of them, is there something that still gets you excited? Is there a vibration that you're like, oh man, I just love me some pink and orange together?
I know, here we go. Well, we should ask this guy. No, it's really interesting. Looking at some of the artists that I just talked about, you want to take their work and kind of emulate things like that, and then push it out beyond the envelope a little bit. So like, okay, what would Wayne Thiebaud do with this?
I ask myself that often, actually. Let's
maybe put a vibrating line between it, or or I don't know. It's something that came about over a period of decades, I guess. I don't know, John. Was I doing this back in the 70s? I don't know.
You made a decision to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, you had all your chops. You'd thrown out many, and it was just a matter of deciding what you wanted to do.
I think so. I think it's something that attracts the eye. I talked about earlier.
Did you talk about being in the Society of Illustrators when you were 22 or with Anteater?
See, we brought in a ringer now. We're here.
Okay.
Society of Illustrators, amazing.
Okay.
California gets in the New York Society.
Yeah.
And Dennis had a piece in when you were a kid.
That's
You had
true.
no right to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dennis, 22 years old, you are in the New York Society of Illustrators?
Yes.
Okay, how did that come about?
And the book that went with it, 200 Years of American Illustration.
Right.
They picked all what they thought were good illustrators, and he's in there.
Okay, 200 years of American illustration, and you made the cut.
Wow, I thought
Okay,
you
okay,
ripped
good.
me
Well,
apart.
thank you for introducing this line of questioning.
There was the Anteater.
From the San Francisco Zoo?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love that.
This was way back in my illustration days when I don't think I have anything here that has the cartoon aspect, because I love cartooning as well. And when I got to New York, I did a lot of things for Children's Television Workshop and a lot of other stuff that I even sometimes put a pseudonym on there.
Oh, good.
That wasn't me because I didn't want people getting confused or anything like that. But yeah, John is right. I didn't think about that. That was really, it made me want to go to New York. That's probably why I did that.
But not living in New York and getting into that show is virtually impossible. And
Wow.
They must have been really short for entries.
They must have been really short for entries
That's
right
it.
here, he says. What kind of friends are you guys?
That's my guy. Yeah.
Oh, my.
Yeah. So.
Well, okay, Dennis, we've talked a lot about your illustration career, and you kind of mentioned as you were transitioning, you stormed the beaches. You really wanted to build an awareness campaign, essentially, that you were hanging your shingle. You were out for business. You wanted fine art galleries to know you existed. Talk to me a little bit about that, because that's now been, what, 30 years?
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about that transition, maybe what inspires you today. Where are you headed with this? I imagine there was a long overlap between the two industries, and now, for the most part, aside from your dues to the Bohemian Club, it's better than washing dishes. What are you doing in the fine art realm?
Well, that's an interesting question in that. I get requests from my galleries because I have a lot of Western. That's how I got into the galleries. Was I decided to go to a gallery that had work like Maynard Dixon and Edgar Payne and all those people in the gallery. There were pieces in the gallery, and to see my work right up next to them, that was. I had one piece here. There was Maynard Dixon right next to it, and
In good company, you're saying.
it was
nice.
It was good. I really wanted that, so I tended to focus on the Southwest and California and the West. I was kind of reluctant to do Native American because Ziemienski or Polish Sicilian guy just doesn't seem very worthy of doing that right. So I would do, if anything, I would do their buildings or maybe their tapestries, or not tapestry, but their textiles, thank you, or pottery or having people working on that or whatever, but never anything that dealt with ritual. Like you see a teepee and it has stuff on it. I don't even want to go there. So it was, I'm kind of elaborating on this, but it was going to galleries that I thought I could maybe turn the gallery around a little bit, and rather than doing cowboys and Indians at a Western
Which was
gallery,
very big for a long time, and
Right.
arguably still is, but that was
Right.
definitely a trope, right?
I would
Yeah.
do something that was more in line with what I do, and so I decided to do road trips, Route 66, motels, neon. I love neon. And so I'm going to be doing a show at Blue Rain this coming year, which is the 100th anniversary of Route 66. So I'm going to be doing a nice show there, hopefully. I haven't.
Yeah. Well, you know, when we talk about what the idea of the West is, and there are many versions of the West, but one thing that's pretty ubiquitous that almost everybody's done is that Great American Road Trip. So it is more, I don't know, it just feels familiar and exotic at the same time. But I think that a lot of us, whether you're a cowboy, whether you've ever been on a horse, you've been in a car down some desert highway, right?
Right, right. Well, in 2004 and 2006, I guess the first show not the first show, I worked with Francis Livingston, one of our colleagues, because he was in the gallery, and I figured, okay, if he can do that, maybe I can get in there. And so we're trying to do stuff that's outside of the realm, not exactly, I'd love to do cityscapes, seascapes, foreign work. You know, if I had to do just cowboys and Indians, I would get bored. I like doing still lives, forests, whatever, you know. As an illustrator, we like doing everything.
Variety,
We were
yeah.
taught that if some art director said, "Can you do this?" You can go, "Yeah." You go back home and go, "Ooh, geez."
Well, one
and
of the
you do,
things-
you do it. You go back to your studio, you do it, and you come back with it really good, and they go, "Oh, great, that looks great."
Well, and one of the
So-
things I'd like to say is, you know, no matter what you're painting, whether you're painting, you know, sort of California iconography, pool girls, oceans, cowboys, old cars, like, it looks like yours. And I think that's a really big challenge for a lot of artists who are trying to figure out their voice and, you know, I don't know, kind of messing around with different subject matter, is to have some red line through that. So can you speak in any way to how you found that continuity, or was that just wash, rinse, repeat until you had your own hand in your own work?
Well, Gina, I think you're getting there. I mean,
Thank you.
my work is up here with Gina's, and it's marvelous stuff.
Thank you very much.
For me, it took a long while, I think, despite what John might say. You know, we both had our go-to kind of things that we love doing, and it just, you know, you see more and more of your colleagues or people who did this artwork from some time ago, and you start looking at that and you start molding what you do. My artwork from the 80s or 90s looks a lot different than it does now.
Yeah.
I'm more painterly, I guess, but I have a tendency to think, oh, I know I'm getting old. I should be able to draw those, you know, paint those lines a little. I don't have to have a punch stick, you know. You know, I should be able to get those lines in a little more carefully. So to answer your question, it's a period of time that you have to just endure through the work that you love. And that's it. I think if you love what you're doing, it's going to evolve.
Yeah.
And whatever happens to be a Ziemienski is something that didn't happen in 1970. You know, it happened.
There's also an element, Francis Livingston did it as well, and you've done it, that Brad Holland talked about. Remember when Prince became the artist that previously known as?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Brad Holland pointed out that anyone in our culture now can be the artist except illustrators.
Because they're doing work for hire, it's just,
You take your work, if you're an illustrator, you take your work to a gallery and they go, oh, this looks like illustration. There's a bias.
rude.
That's another thing I wanted to talk about. I'm glad John raised this. We have to introduce John here sometime, famous illustrator. that was one thing when I was going to school. And up until maybe, turn of the century, perhaps, it was looked down upon. It wasn't an art form. It was, in some people's, we go to the Bohemian Club, there are people who say, oh, that's an illustration or whatever. That's art,
Yeah.
It's something that evolves. And there are a lot of things that I've done for illustration that people have up on their walls as fine artwork.
Sure.
And so, yes, I was always,
Making that transition
is tough, is really difficult.
is more difficult than for Prince to become an artist.
Formally.
Right, it's true. But
But that was Mark Sublett, who he loves illustrators. And,
as a matter of fact, yes.
yeah, and he appreciates not only that they make deadlines, but that, they're really serious about what they're doing. Yeah.
Well,
Exactly.
And you
There's
have
some people who
technical
understand.
prowess.
Yeah.
Oh, so I came into the art world in a time when there was a word called de-skilled painting, which means painting badly on purpose, and not even in an emotive way, just poorly. Those who might appreciate skill
Yeah.
might appreciate what illustrators do as well, right?
I know. I have high regard for illustrators, John, just not you and me, but all of our colleagues.
Especially not you.
And, well, because I'd love to get you in galleries. I think, you would do quite well.
I'm busy.
I know.
Unavailable.
I know. He is so good. It always frustrated me to hear that. Oh, it looks like illustration. And I wanted to, slap them around and say, well, look at Norman Rockwell's stuff. It was illustration, but it's considered fine art now.
Well,
it's
he's
transition.
been reassessed,
Yeah.
He's definitely been reassessed recently, and I think a lot more people who have spent some time in front of an easel are speaking to how technically challenging what he was doing was.
Right. Well, a lot of the old, early 20th century and even before, artists were illustrators, like Edward Hopper. I have a whole book on illustration that he did. Maynard Dixon. You can just go down the whole row there. They were all illustrators, or at least did a lot of work on assignment rather than through people liking it and buying it, or gallery work or museum work. And so the fine line, I would like to erase that line altogether.
Well, I think that's something that you mentioned earlier, that you went to school at the California School of Arts and Craft, which they dropped the craft a few years ago. But in the same way, there's a lot of people thinking right now about why is there a distinction between the two? Are certain materials or certain techniques more important than another one, or more valid than another one? So I think in the same way, that blurring of lines is actually good for
I was
people.
irritated that they dropped that. I know the fellow who decided to do that, and he came back and wants Anne to show her mosaic work. And I said, well, this is craft.
Craft, I think that's a craft.
So, well,
He's going to dress that, I think, in January in Sonoma. There's going to be a big craft show, and he's going to dress the artistry and craft. So I
yeah.
Because it's trendy right now too.
So-
But it is.
California
it is,
College
yes.
of Arts and Crafts. It was a
but-
great school.
We don't need to perseverate on that too much.
No,
Before
know.
we bore everyone and their drinks run dry, I
Yeah,
did
mine
want to talk a little
did
bit
a
about one of
sip.
the things that brought us together here today, and that is your book,
Mm.
Dennis Ziemienski, 50 Years as a Painter. Tell us a little bit about the book project and how it came about. I know the preamble, preface, what do we call it, was written by our mutual friend Michael Clausen, who is
Yes.
the executive director of Western Art Collector magazine. But tell me how this whole thing came about.
Well, that's really a fun. It's almost as good as the Kentucky Derby. I was invited to join the Autry Museum in their annual show,
Masters of the American
Masters
West.
of the American West. I thought, wow, I guess I'm a master of the American West.
Master.
This is good. And so Ann and I went down, and we were joined by Mark Sublett and his son Charles for breakfast one morning, because they come out, all the famous gallerists come out and join this show, and it's a lot of heavyweights that are in this show. So I was happy to be included this one year. And so we're at breakfast, and Mark is saying, this was in February. And so Mark said, so we're going to have a show with you at the gallery this year. It's usually every other year. And he said, how does December sound? I said, yeah, I think I could produce a few interesting pieces by December. No problem at all. He says, okay, but how old are you going to be? I went,
Is that a polite question to ask a man?
yeah. No. However, it was last year in 24, and I said, well, I'm going to be 77. And he says, retrospective. And I want a coffee table book
That's
as
not
well.
what they call women who are turning 77.
I know.
You're
I'm
lucky.
a retrospective.
You're lucky.
I want a retrospect. We're going to do a retrospective, and I want a coffee table book. And I went, I always thought maybe having a book with my work in it might be kind of fun for people to see. Okay, so Mark, you've produced several books. So where do I go from here? I don't know. You'll find out. He wasn't overly helpful. I mean, he had a few ideas, but it didn't work. I was thinking, we know several writer friends, one in Pasadena that writes wonderful books, several other people, editor of the local newspaper in Sonoma that was a wonderful editor and could write. And I'm just tearing my hair out trying to think about it. So we go down to the gallery later on that day, and you have to stand in front of your work to introduce yourself and to answer questions that people may have. And so Adolfo Castillo and his wife Robin come by. Adolfo is the executive director of American Western and International Art Corrector Publishing.
Yes.
And so they came by. I didn't know them, and they said, "Oh, this is very nice work. Tell us about yourself and what you're going to do and everything else." And I are standing there, and I say, "Well, Mark Sublett would like to do a retrospective, and they want us to do a book. Only we're just at wit's end," and I didn't know that they were in the publishing business at this point. And they said, "We'll help you." And I went, "Oh, really?" I mean, so I know InDesign. This is Robin, a wonderful designer for the book. Well, I'll help you design that. We'll get maybe Michael Clausen to write it. Mark Sublett better do a foreword if he asks you to do it. And so I busily, this was just absolutely mind-blowing. This was just serendipity again. I went back home and came up, took a look at all my slides and everything else, and had to put them on JPEGs and whatnot for the old stuff and the new stuff I had already there. And I designed the book, but I didn't know InDesign or anything. So I had to ship everything on a JPEG to Robin to put
JPEGs
together.
again. Here they
And we
are.
had, this was like March and April. So by the time May rolls around, it's kind of like, well, let's see, how much time do we have before December to get this book done? And the people that we were talking to said, yeah, it'll take a couple of years. Italy takes their time, or China, you have to send your book to China and you have to get approved and everything else. It's going to take several months, if not a few years. And I went, it just won't do. So Billy Schenk, who also put a forward in my book.
Who's another painter friend.
Is another
Correct,
painter,
yeah.
colleague, friend of mine, just absolutely wonderful, real Western painter. a real funny guy too. I have stories about him, but
maybe for
much
another,
like John here.
maybe for another podcast, Dennis.
Yeah, I know. But he said, you ought to go to this place in Canada, get in touch with them, and I can't. Freezes. Thanks, Ann.
And
She's my sidekick here. Friesen's Publishing said, okay, we'll send the materials, we'll consider it and everything else. And they got the thing done by September.
excellent.
September, October, we were ready with the book. And so it was fun to put together. I built chapters. The first chapter is about my illustration career, but it goes on to different segments of my fine art thing. Things that I like painting.
Yeah.
And one of them, there's a chapter about the Southwest. There's a chapter about the American Mountain West.
Mm-hmm.
There's also one it's called Let There Be Light. That's my neon thing. I like doing that. But there's also a chapter about, it's called Wow, Way Out West.
Oh.
It's about California.
You and I both have a little bit of a axe to grind on this one. So yes or no, is California the real West?
Well, you and I have an axe to grind, and we ground it down so much that we say, fucking yes. This is where the West ends.
Yeah, it's true.
There's so much West here that the real West doesn't have what we have.
Yeah.
We have the gold rush. We have the Transcontinental Railway. We have the shipping stuff. We have the missions. We have vaqueros. We have cowboys. We have Native Americans.
We have the literal end of the continent.
Yes, and shipping and everything. There's so much here that could be illustrated, if you will, or put into fine art paintings. It's a lot better than just showing some trapper up in Teton.
That's right.
So
A diversity of Western stories
and I don't
to be
mean
told
I
here.
don't, yes, and I certainly don't mean to hold a grudge against any of the other places, because I love doing that too. I mean, when you travel to Yellowstone, Grand Teton, Utah, and the wonderful stuff, Zion and Bryce, it's just jaw-dropping.
Yeah.
Arizona, Grand Canyon, and Monument Valley. Every one of those states have some spectacular stuff, but for crying out loud, take a look at us. We're not just Hollywood all the time, or hippies in San Francisco, but John.
Joe Mora did a book in 1949.
Yeah.
Joe Mora, fellow Bohemian.
The introduction deals with this. And
Yes.
proves that the first cowboys came from California, first American cowboys came from California, not Texas.
First
That's right.
American cowboys came from California, not Texas.
Yes, this was California. This is called California. I have the book.
This suits my agenda. I like this.
Well, she's a cowgirl.
I wasn't born here, but I got here as soon as I could.
Well, she's a Nevada. Nevada, what she knows. So you should know. There's a lot of stuff out here. And Joe was.
Yeah, he makes an argument that since California came in, Texas was still an independent republic, and California came into the States first. Therefore, our vaqueros are real cowboys, or we got there first.
All right, I'll buy
Yes.
this. I bet.
Yes.
Sign me up.
was an independent republic.
That's right.
Yeah.
I did. It's right there.
Yeah.
I think it's there.
It is.
It is over there, yeah.
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 Excellent. Well, okay, before we let people go refresh their drinks and we get to a little bit of Q&A from our in-person audience, there's one more thing I wanted to talk about, because you and I are both involved in it, and it is the Coors Western Art Show.
Oh,
which
wonderful.
is coming up soon, January 7th and 8th in Denver, Colorado. And
Yeah,
running
congratulations.
Thank you very much. Running through the duration of the National Western Stock Show, which is through January 25th. Tell me a little bit about what you're sending to Denver.
Oh boy, it's always fun, And because Denver is wide open, you can do just about anything there. And of course, I'm doing cowboys and Indians, but there's a nice 36 by 36. I love doing clouds, and so there's a cowboy looking up at the clouds, and so that's a nice one. But there's another one in there. There's another one that's a 36 by 18 of a fellow who's sipping water. It's kind of like a gold miner. Maybe he's looking for gold or something like that. But his horse is there drinking from a stream. You see a waterfall in the background. Probably no Giardia, I'm not certain. I worry about that.
They didn't have UV lights back then.
Oh, yeah.
Things
They
were
didn't
tough.
worry.
There were a lot of pit stops on the
Okay,
Great
yeah, that's
Oregon
true.
Trail.
But one of my favorite ones is this fellow, Native American, with a bow and arrow, and he's deep in the woods. I got my idea from Frank Brangwyn again, of these wonderful trees with shadows and light on them. And so when you get to Coors, have a look.
I will.
He's got his arrow out. He's about to shoot something.
Well, I look forward to it. I'm going to be there in December as well for the Young Guns exhibition.
And what do you have?
I am doing mostly cowgirls, nocturnes. I call them cosmic cowgirls, and they're a bunch of beautiful ladies with horses in kind of blue and green, and a little bit of a astronomical element to it. So
Wonderful.
yeah.
Wonderful. Okay.
Well, wonderful. Okay, before we move on to our Q&A, I got to make sure I got through everyone who submitted online. This is one I saved purposely for the Q&A. So consider this the beginning of our Q&A, and I will take questions from anyone here following this. Another artist. These artists have a lot of questions for you, Dennis.
Fine.
And I want you to really put your thinking cap on for this one, because it's a tough one. From my friend Lucille Wedeking, who lives in Texas, but
Okay.
grew up in California. So know that there might not be a wrong answer for her, but some other people around here might judge you for your answer.
Okay.
What is your favorite taco?
Gee, I love.
Or style of Mexican food, perhaps.
I love them all. Carnitas.
Good answer. Good answer. Are you a red chili or green chili kind of a guy?
Christmas.
Christmas, diplomatic answer and timely.
For those of you who don't know Christmas, it's a Santa Fe thing that you like both green and red.
All right, well, is there anybody here who has any questions for Dennis? If you ask them, I may repeat them again because I'm the one wearing the mic, and then we'll turn it over to Dennis to answer.
So Dennis, if you were to adopt a legitimate career, what do you think it would be?
Okay, so your friend John. John, what is your last name?
Matos.
Matos. John
I
Matos.
announced you earlier, but
John Matos asks, if you were to do a legitimate career, what would it be?
okay. Legitimate career. Building rock walls, maybe, or designing homes. I like spatial organization, and not necessarily. Whenever I have designed a home, there are 3 stages to that. I'll elaborate real quickly here. One is the design phase, the next is the building phase, and the next is the living there phase where you have to redo it.
Yes. And if you're smart, you don't do all those things at the same time, right?
Exactly. You
The
have to
renovating
think.
phase and the living there phase should never overlap, as I understand it.
You got it.
Question.
Yes, Anne
Yes, dear.
Ziemienski.
If you weren't painting for all the people that want you to paint, certain, what
Uh-huh.
you're doing now, if you just didn't have galleries, nobody was asking you anything, what would you paint?
Okay, Dennis, I'm going to repeat this one. If you weren't painting for your adoring fans who have certain expectations of you, what would you be painting?
Just about everything else. I mean, I love.
So one painting.
Okay.
One painting that, wasn't gonna be for sale, anything, just for your pleasure to paint.
No, it wouldn't be my daughter Sophia. Somebody commented on that. because I painted her several times. I think it would be our travels. Ann and I have traveled recently to Egypt, Greece, and Turkey. And the stuff that you see there, you kind of go, ooh, I can't, nobody's going to want to see or even think of me selling that, but I want to paint that.
Yeah.
It's traveling. Traveling is very important for me. As I get older, it becomes a little difficult, but you endure, and because what you're going to see and taste and visualize, not visualize, but smell, everything is something brand new, and you just want to record that, and I think that's probably it. I don't get tired of painting anything, because if I do, I'll move on to something else. It's our illustration thing. John knows this, that if he did one thing all the time, he would starve. He would want to paint something else,
So, piggybacking on that, if you were on a desert island,
Okay, this is good.
would you continue to paint?
No, I go swimming.
Good answer. Good answer.
Yeah,
Are there other questions here for Dennis, or comments? They don't necessarily have to be a question. Yes.
I have a question just crossed my mind a lot. Is your experience in the Navy, does that affect your painting at all? Is any of that you bring into your art career?
Your experience in the Navy, does that affect you at all? Something you bring into your art career?
Not totally, but I think of there, but for the grace of God go I. On a bigger scale, the people that endure that kind of lifestyle, I admire, because I couldn't do it. It's something I did for 2 years, and I never come out saying, I'm a vet, that kind of a thing, because it's other people merit, that thing. But it comes to mind ever so often, like, I know what I want to do because of this other thing that I don't.
Deductive reasoning at its best.
Yes.
A lot of us probably had to try out jobs we didn't want to find the one we did.
Right, and it does, in other aspects it does, painting seascapes or traveling. It got me into traveling, because, the Navy sent me all these different places, so it's kind of like, ooh, yeah, ooh. So there are many aspects, but I think the big one, Mike, is doing what I do and loving it and not doing that.
You were an artist.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I was ship's artist. That came up.
Oh, that's
came
good.
around.
All right.
Yeah, they saw that I could draw pictures.
So I have a question about illustrating. Did you ever get a commission where they said, read the book and make a cover?
That's a good question. When you were an illustrator, did you ever have to read the book and just come up with an idea for the cover based on the contents of the book?
You had to. You had to read the book. If you didn't read the book, and sometimes I had Ann read it, but before Ann, because she's a quick reader, she's faster than I am.
Read out loud. This is before books on tape. Well, these books weren't on tape because they weren't out yet.
Patricia Hearst. She did a book. Who knew?
Yeah.
Murder at San Simeon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this before or after she was kidnapped?
After, yeah.
Check it.
No, I've done a lot of books where it's essential that you read the book, because you can get, there was this one author who was famous during the 40s, but they revisited her books, and I did her book covers, called Elizabeth Daly. And you would read the book, and you would find a sentence even in there that would kind of capture the book, the whole essence of the book, and you'd want to kind of put that scene on that on that book cover. And so that's what I did. And publishers don't care what you put, as long as it's fun, and visual. They don't care what you put on there. I read a book one time where they had eucalyptus trees, and the whole book was about Long Island. And there are no eucalyptus trees in Long Island.
But you painted them anyway?
Yeah, and people are constantly saying, palm trees, You have to know where your geography is, because if you put a coconut palm in date palm in San Francisco, people will remark on that. I had one real quick thing. I was doing this series of Highway 99 in
Down the
another
Central
road trip
Valley,
down the
right?
Central
Yeah.
Valley in Bakersfield, and in Bakersfield, a lot of oil wells, and I did this one picture of a diver diving into, you can't see the pool, they're diving in past oil wells, and I called it Union Avenue Plunge, because that Keith Wicks used to go there a lot, one of our colleagues, and also Chuck Pyle. He was also instrumental in that. Yeah. Bakersfield. And so I put this show on in, what's the name of the town? Lodi. Right. There we go. There was this gallery, wonderful Knowlton Gallery in Lodi. And so we put the show on there. And we had people up from Bakersfield that said, I remember Union Avenue Plunge, and they never had oil wells there. It was, it never had that. And so out from my pocket, I pull the photographs of Union Avenue Plunge with oil wells. So I said, being an illustrator, you make sure that whatever you're doing is
Plausible.
Plausible.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Otherwise, you're going to get shit.
Somebody's going to catch you up in a lie. I feel it. Yep.
Exactly.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
there it is. So book covers, to answer your question, yes, I would read them, maybe have Ann read them, but before Ann, I would read them and get phrases.
That's partnership right there. That's
illustrated.
worth getting married in the first place. Just,
Oh, yeah.
if anybody's on the fence about getting married, that's it.
There it is. You got it.
Do we have any other questions from the audience?
Well, just to piggyback on what you were talking about books, have you ever thought about illustrating a child's?
Yes.
So,
All
can I
the time.
repeat really quickly? Have you ever thought about illustrating a children's book?
Of course. There are several stories, old folk tales from Sicily or Poland or somewhere that I'd love to illustrate. I'm always telling Sophia, our daughter, that perhaps she can illustrate. She's a good illustrator herself.
And she's a graphic designer.
A graphic designer and good
Apples,
artist.
trees, whatnot.
Yeah. Well, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. They always say. So she's really good at that. I think she could do that. But that's something that I'd love. Vicki, thank you. Yeah, I'd love to do.
Perfect. Any other thoughts or questions? Lobo.
I loved your book, the 2 seconds I spent with it, but is there any, I looked at the price and I've been having nightmares all night. But, no, it seems like.
It's worth it. It's worth it.
To get all that imagery, but first of all, 2 things. Do you have any Navy stuff in the book or something that harkens back to your Navy days? But also, I'd love to go back to early cinematography and caves. And cave painting to me is motion picture, but also, would you say more like Lecoq? I wanted to say that. Does that sound French?
Yeah.
Lascaux, yeah, I know which one
Lascaux.
you're talking about. Yes.
But California, Nevada, and everything, we have such beautiful art.
I know.
Illustrative or fine art?
Both. I can't separate the two. I come from both families. Having started off in the illustration field and then being adopted by the gold standard, I guess you could call it. Even though the gold standard still is illustration as well. Yeah, it's both.
That cave that's in all the cowboy movies and you know, where Roy Rogers corners, that cave exists and it's up above the Autry Museum in Griffith Park.
Oh, wow.
And it's,
I didn't know that.
Oh.
and it's in a million cowboy movies. When you
So there you go.
recognize that it's there,
Yeah.
you see it just over and over.
that's
You know,
fun.
where-
Well, is it
Oh.
was it made for set, or was it from indigenous people before that was Hollywood?
I have no idea.
I'm gonna look into this.
But yeah. I stumbled across it and was like, God, this looks so familiar. And it's in
That's very
Gina Teichert
cool.
movie.
Yeah.
Well, to answer your question about submarines there, go to the chronology and you'll find my submarine in there.
It's at the end of the book.
Yeah, it's the Sterlet. It was a World War II submarine that was modified in the 50s, and I was transferred to a nuclear submarine later during my 2-year reserve stint, and actually sunk my old submarine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in the Straits of Molokai. So you'll see the old submarine that was sunk, the USS Sterlet, in there. She's 15,000 feet down.
A little lower than a reef, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. Are there any other questions or comments for Dennis? Well, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Please enjoy some wine, whiskey, tequila, beers, non-alcoholic drinks. Dennis, thank you so much for your time.
Gina, thank you.
Yeah, it's wonderful learning more about you.